Rhys Thomas, and Alex Bono.
Can you hear me
And now, if we're able to, we're going to try to Skype in Bill Hader from an undisclosed location. So we'll see if we can get him. Hello, Bill. Welcome to the Toronto International Film Festival.
Hello. Hey, Rhys. Hi, Alex.
Hello, hello.
Hey there.
So we just screened episode 1 of Blue Jean Committee, and I think we have a very appreciative audience. So, Bill, let me ask you, I mean, this show is clearly made with a lot of, not just Blue Jean Committee, but the whole series is clearly made with a lot of affection for documentaries. Can you talk about your own appreciation for documentary films, how that began and where it comes from?
Can you say that again? Because I hear the guys who Skyped me in are so stoked that it worked that they're cheering right now. They're so excited that it worked that all I can hear right now is like, dude, it worked! No way! We're geniuses. So can you say that again?
Sure, I'll say it again.
Can you ask your question again?
I was asking, this show is clearly made with so much love for documentary film. I want to know where...
Awesome. It's working perfectly.
Are you able to hear me? No.
Now they're pissed because I made fun of them. I can't hear anybody.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now. Hey.
Okay, beautiful. Welcome, Bill Hader.
Hey, what's now?
I wanted to ask you about your own, the roots of your own interest in documentary film. How did you take an interest in documentary film, and can you talk more about that interest?
Oh, I love documentary. The first movie I really fell in love with was The Thin Line. Was the first one that I really loved, and Errol Morris's early films, Gates of Heaven and Vernon, Florida. Because they were documentary films, but they were incredibly cinematic. They were just in a way that I'd never seen movies done before. And then I think actually in the past couple of years, I've started to watch more and more documentaries because I don't really know why. And I've also just started reading more nonfiction too. I don't know if it's just age or everyone's doing it. I don't know what's going on, but it just seems like there's been so many really interesting documentaries made and other ones that I'm discovering too. But that's really where it started, was with Errol Morris, to be honest.
And you in this series, you guys took on one of Errol Morris's films, Thin Blue Line. One of the episodes is a take on that. Can you talk about how you arrived at the documentaries you were going to spoof in this series? Maybe spoof isn't a good word. Do you guys hate the word spoof?
I don't know. I mean, a lot of it was just kind of, Rhys and Alex can also answer. I love that they're in Toronto. I'm getting asked all the questions. You guys could have just Skyped, bro.
You knew this was going to happen.
You guys could have just Skyped.
Yeah.
I think a lot of it was trying to figure out what were well-known documentaries, what was a good look, what was something that could have had interesting characters for Fred Armisen and I, and what was something we could tell an interesting story with, you know? But that was kind of the criteria of, the Grey Gardens one was a good, where Seth Meyer said, oh, Grey Gardens is great. You and Fred as the two women from Grey Gardens, and that verite style is the same style that the Maysles brothers used, is the same style that they do found footage horror films in. So what if it morphed into a found footage horror film? And that was it. Like, Seth said that in the room, and we went, yeah, we could do that, And
Canada haven't seen the show yet, so you just gave away the first episode.
Well, if they haven't seen Grey Gardens, then they haven't seen Sandy Passage yet, then I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah.
want to throw this out to all of you to better understand your production schedules on them, because from what I do understand about them, you were making these in really remarkably short periods of time, which I take it is you're able to do because you have such rigorous training out of SNL.
Yeah, we had a fairly condensed production schedule, but yeah, more time than we traditionally get on SNL, which is usually just a day. Most of the episodes were roughly about 3 days. This one was, I don't know, probably like 6 or something eventually. This one was definitely the most involved. If you saw part 2, where it gets a lot bigger and more exciting, then...
Well, let me tell you what happens at the end of part 2. What
Yeah.
happens is the band...
Yeah, it's bigger.
When that one.
But this one might have had 4 or 5 base days, but then as you're going and getting the additional interviews, you get an okay from, Kenny Loggins, come up to Santa Barbara and spend 20 minutes with me, and then that would be how we'd spend a few hours. So we were picking up interviews, but it was all of them were sort of a core. You get 4 days of production.
So, Bill, can you talk about how you got into the characters of these and what kind of preparation you did to do that? I mean, I don't know, in Gentle and Soft, if you had someone specific in mind, the way in your Grey Gardens parody, clearly you're little Edie Beale. But like in preparing to be little Edie Beale, did you watch Grey Gardens 10 times or?
No, I mean, I watched Grey Gardens a little bit and picked up little things. My wife pointed out that in Grey Gardens, she's always primping herself, and she said, oh, she's looking at her reflection in the lens, and is like primping herself in the reflection of the lens. And I remember telling Reese that, and Reese going, oh, do that, that's good. And Reese and Alex also, just for the performances, which I thought was really great, which is, we come from Saturday Night Live and doing sketch comedy, and I remember in doing Sandy Passage, Reese saying, there's a scene where I get really angry about how I could have gotten married, and my mother prevented that. And Reese said, get angry, don't play the comedy of it. Like, this is a real human, we want this thing to feel very authentic, so that's why you want the acting to feel real, and you want the other characters to be real. That's why we cast a lot of people that were not well known. You know what I mean? We cast a lot of unknowns, especially if you saw the Thin Blue Line one we did. There's a lot of unknowns in it, and they're all phenomenal. But it just helps with the realism of it, and that was really Reese and Alex's urging, which I think really set the show apart. But for instance, for Blue Jean Committee, it was just the idea of doing. We saw this History of the Eagles documentary that Alex Gibney did, and just the idea of really tough alpha guys playing super pussy music made us laugh. Because that's kind of the Eagles. It's just seeing like Glenn Fry getting mad at Randy Meisner and saying, if you don't hit the high note on Take It to the Limit, I'm putting your head through that fucking wall. And then it's like, take it to the limit. And it's like, what is going on? This is like such a weird thing. And so Fred and I thought that was funny, of really tough guys playing just shitty music. Sorry for any Eagle fans out there.
Yeah, we're big fans of the Eagles. There's nothing disparaging.
Reese and Alex, talk to me about the production design of these things, because there's so many little details from the record album cover to the clothing design to the archival footage you have.
I'll say that our designer, Katie Byron, is phenomenal, our production designer for the series. Amazing. And, the whole perspective of the whole series was to be very authentic and very loving. Honestly, it's what's so thrilling about being at, the Toronto, doc panel, that to be almost charading as if we were a real documentary, because it comes from such a place of love of documentaries and such a place of authenticity. There was never a sense of, hey, let's make fun of this documentary, and then we'll make fun of that documentary. Even in choosing which ones that we were going to touch upon, there was also already a sense of it helps if the material itself is dramatic, because, if you take a documentary that's already kind of humor-based, it wasn't really much fun in that. So taking something that was very authentic, or taking an approach that was extremely authentic, and then just doing a lot of research, and which was an absolute pleasure to be diving into these films that you love so much, and then saying, well, how did they really make it? And in some cases, we spoke to the filmmakers and asked them, how did you make it?
Lenses too, right, Alex?
Yeah, when we were doing the sort of Grey Gardens episode, I actually was, speaking with the Maisels family, and before Albert had passed away, got a lot of great advice from him about, these are literally, this is the lens I used, this is the film stock I shot on, this is how I lit it, this is how you should operate the camera. Sounds like a lot of fun, make sure there's lots of fabulous costumes. For all of them, the Errol Morris episode, we shot with the exact lens that they shot all of their interviews with. We also, we had the courtroom artist from the case in the Thin Blue Line. We had the same courtroom artist create illustrations for us.
Purely coincidentally, though.
Absolutely.
That was an accident.
That almost makes us sound like really obsessive, but that was
Yeah. Yeah, we just Googled courtroom illustrator, and she was the first one that came up. That was basically what happened.
But there was a real, a focus on, you couldn't get close enough. So that was a part of the fun of it. It sounds obsessive, like, oh, what a pain in the ass. No, but it was absolutely one of the most fun parts about it.
Bill, I want to ask you about the writing of the series, because I heard you say in another interview that almost none of this is improvised. It's all pretty tightly scripted. Is that right?
On some of the episodes, yeah. The Grey Gardens episode, there's hardly any, I don't think there's any improvisation. That's all Seth Meyer's script. The Nanook of the North one, Canuck of the North, there's not a lot of, there's a couple of improvised lines, but not a lot. No, because, you wanted to show up with like a really strong base, and you wanted to write it for the style, that you were doing. So it's kind of hard to improvise a lot when you're trying to maintain a very specific style, if that makes sense. But the drones one, the Vice one we did, we improvised a lot on that one, I feel like, right, Reese? Or?
Yeah, that one, some of those things, for the most part, again, we had a tight schedule, which meant that we had to be fairly concise about things, but also
just for the audience here, I want to describe your episode on Vice, which is called Drones with a Z at the end. Can you describe what happens in Drones?
Yeah, sure. Drones it's based on Vice, and Bill and Fred play a series of Vice journalists that are drones journalists that are sent down to they go to Juarez to investigate the cartel, and in particular to sort of search for the head of the cartel, El Chingon, and along the way they keep putting themselves in danger
You have
unnecessarily.
Jack Black also appears in this episode.
Jack Black plays the Shane Smith character, and we had this idea of like, what if, we play just at the Vice show. When I watched it, it was always, and some of Vice is really good, but we were talking about how it is almost kind of like the reason you watch it is to see like if those guys are gonna get like hurt or not, because they put themselves in such crazy danger, and people
like
are
Jackass.
Like, oh, you shouldn't go there, and then they go, oh, we're gonna go over there. Hipster journalist was something that we found funny.
I interrupted to get you to set up the Drones episode, and I think you were making a point about the making of the Drones episode. And
Just the looseness in improv versus scripted. I think on SNL, for example, there's a lot of improvisation, a lot of the time, you can get away with it when the format is only maybe 2 to 3 minutes long. But on a 22-minute episode, or on this case 44-minute, like the narrative is obviously that much more important. So you couldn't afford to get too loose. Otherwise, your story would sort of run off in the other direction.
This episode actually is kind of fun because when we went to interview the real, rock stars, those weren't scripted. I mean, we had general questions, but that really felt like conducting a documentary interview, and we would just sort of say, hey, literally with Jaime, it was like, did you have any relationship with the Eagles? And actually one of them was like, oh my God, I met Joe Walsh at this one party. It was amazing. So, well, tell us that story, but just use the name Clark Honus instead of Joe Walsh.
And Cameron Crowe obviously, had spent actual time with them, with the Eagles and at their heights. And so yeah, again, you could talk to them about that. I could just see Bill laughing on the monitor.
I just think the Eagles are funny.
Yeah.
The Eagles are just like a funny band to me. Just thinking about Glenn Frey just makes me laugh. It's also a great thing, like Don Henley in that Eagles documentary. It's really funny because he'll talk about like David Geffen, and he'll say like, well, David Geffen and blah, blah, blah. But then when he talks about like, they sue a lot of people, like they end up suing a lot of people, and then when they start suing people, David Geffen turns into Mr. Geffen. Well, when Mr. Geffen was, and you're like, oh, okay, so they're talking about the lawsuit, It was just very funny.
And I don't know if it's clear that in the doc, for those of you who don't know, our Alvin Azoff character is Irving Azoff, the real Eagles manager, who was sort of just playing himself, and then it was his son playing him in the archival footage.
His son who looks identical to him, which is really crazy.
Now, in the course of making this, did you ever worry that an audience that isn't as obsessed with these documentaries as you guys are, were going to be totally lost on this?
I personally didn't. I mean, we talked about this in terms of like, my favorite kind of comedy was, Monty Python and things like that, where they would talk about, these really, the summarized proofs competition and all these things. I didn't know what they were talking about, but it was making them laugh. And I feel like, it's okay to, whatever you're naturally interested in, that's what you find genuinely funny, and that's what you should do. But any sort of criticism towards this show about being like inside jokes, I find kind of weird and weirdly kind of demeaning to the audience. It's like, you guys won't get this. I don't understand that.
Yeah, and as well, hopefully, if for some reason you haven't seen Grey Gardens or Thin Blue Line, it'll hopefully, send you out to go and seek them out and watch them, which has got to be a good thing, right?
I also feel like, I think everybody has a different answer for this, and I certainly think that all the episodes are enjoyable on their own merits, but I also feel like it's totally okay to make something that is for a more niche audience. Like, this is for this kind of audience. It's for you guys. And I feel like that kind of a show, you can either make something that's very broad, that everyone sort of gets a minor chuckle at, or something that's very specific that people just absolutely love because it's for them. Mm-hmm. And I feel like I'm totally fine with that.
Or it's for all, it was for us, I mean, that was the thing, really, when we're in the writer's room, it's just me and Seth and Fred and Reese and Alex and a couple other of us just trying to make each other laugh and not worrying about, like, well, gosh, I hope a lot of people know that Nanuko the North was fake, And it's like, who cares? It's just a funny setup, and it's and you just commit to it 100%. And what I'm finding is that a lot of people haven't seen these things and still find it really funny, and that they then go out and see, like just what Alex, Reese and Alex are saying, you go see Thin Blue Line or go see these movies and enjoy them.
Watching today was such a treat with a large audience here, because you really felt the laughter, responding to the screen. And I wonder, as you're editing these, do you screen them for audiences for laughs, or are you just going by your own instincts about what makes you laugh in the edit room?
It's definitely, for the most part, you're in the edit room and you go through waves of, this is hilarious, and no, this is awful. and you know, and I think you resist showing it to other people for the longest time. But no, we would pass it around amongst each other. You know, once things were taking shape, it would really go around internally, and I think all of us would screen it for different groups. You know, where there were questions. But no, we didn't do. I mean, there's no test screening in the traditional sense at all. You just kind of.
Yeah, if we test screen this, they probably would never air.
Yeah, we'd be done.
Bill, can you really hit a high note?
No. That's a woman named Petra, who's
Petra
friend
Hayden.
of Fred Armisen's, who just, that's my voice. That's her voice she's doing.
Now that you guys have been renewed for 2 more seasons, do you have any thoughts about what you want to take on next?
That email chain just started, right?
Yeah.
Started
Yeah.
the email chain of like, hey, watch this, you guys should check this out, which is kind of how the first season was. You know, it was a big email chain of check out this documentary, or hey, watch this, I just found this on YouTube, what about something, you know, in this vein, but...
Yeah, it's fun. The process is definitely this just discovery of, you know, everyone's gone off and watched things, or has got, and so it's just an experience of getting
Fred
to
always
watch a
comes
bunch.
back with the weirdest one. Fred always comes back and you're like, what is this? He's like, yeah, it's about a town that, you know, well, you will guys see tomorrow.
Yeah.
If you watch this show, the one that Fred wrote is very strange and very sweet.
Yeah.
Yeah, Fred always finds these things I've never heard of, and then, yeah.
Yeah, watch it tomorrow.
I don't want to ruin anything. That's why I'm being all cagey.
It's okay. They can't watch it here anyway, so watch Twitter, I guess. So.
Canada will get it later. Can you just talk about Seth Meyer's role in this? I mean, Bill, we see you and Fred on screen. What is Seth Meyer's contribution to this project?
Well, Seth wrote, he wrote Nanook of the North and Sandy Passage, and then he also did bits of writing on kind of all of them, like he helped out in the writing. And then just when we went to IFC to pitch the show, just having him there, and he was so good at kind of explaining what it was. It was such a hard thing to kind of explain to people what we wanted to do. And you know, I mean, that's been the best thing, is just having his notes. You know, when I was at SNL, he was the head writer, and is just someone who has one of the sharpest minds, not just for comedy, but for story and kind of, you know, I don't know, just he's such an interesting, incredibly smart guy, that you just want him around, you know. So he took time out. He was doing his show, his late night show, and I think he was on a plane, and he wrote the Sandy Passage one on a plane, and we didn't change a single word of it. Mm-hmm. He's one of the best comedy writers, I think, of all time. He really is.
Now, I was at a private screening with you all in New York a few weeks ago, where there were some really distinguished documentary filmmakers in the audience, D.A. Pennebaker and Chris Hedges and Barbara Koppel. What was that? What has been the experience of sharing these films with, you know, real veteran documentary filmmakers?
I mean, it's been such a sort of pleasure to show it to real, you know, our heroes, our documentary filmmaking heroes. That title sequence has got all these classic film clips. That was an idea. Well, what if we got real classic films clips to ground this as a real show that's been on the air forever? And we started reaching out to, and I have a little experience in the documentary world and had known some of these filmmakers, and started reaching out to them, and was just so pleased that they were so receptive. And it's funny because there's an impulse, I think, among, I don't know, some journalists to suggest, oh, you know, the documentary world's not gonna, they don't have a sense of humor, they're not gonna get it, they're not gonna enjoy it. And it's very, that I also find kind of insulting, because I feel like, are you kidding me? Like, the documentary filmmakers that I know all have such a tremendous sense of humor. They're not that, you know, this is documentary filmmaking and how dare you. And certainly when we reached out to, you know, speaking with Barbara Koppel at the premiere, And Barbara Koppel, who was, had such a close relationship with Albert Maysles, and he had passed away, and she can't, she had seen our Grey Gardens tribute and had said to me, well, don't let anyone tell you anything like that. Albert would have absolutely loved this. He had a great sense of humor. As have all of the filmmakers we reached out to. Everybody said, absolutely, please use my clip. This sounds like a great idea. Love it. Love getting the documentary, just more of a mainstream sort of acceptance of them anyway. So it's been tremendous.
Bill, can you talk about any specific feedback that you've received that's stuck with you, either from people who really know documentaries or who don't know documentaries at all?
Most of the feedback's been really great, I've had just friends email me and call me, and some actor friends go, can I be in next season, and stuff like that, which was nice. But, and I say, no way, all me and Fred. No, no, it's been really good. I'm so proud of it. It's one of those things, like the minute that credit sequence starts, Reese and Alex will tell you, I don't watch anything that I do. I've never watched, I think, a full sketch that I ever did on SNL. Any movie I'm in, I kind of watch once so I can talk about it. I don't enjoy watching myself, but my wife and I sat down and watched went on our TiVo and just watched all the episodes, and I'm just so proud of the show because I'm a huge film fan. And I feel like there's this thing that comedy can't be cinematic, And to do a comedy, it has to be really brightly lit and very kind of, staid and kind of giant sets and just not look really real or something. And like it telegraphs that you're watching a comedy. And I like that we did something that was very grounded and real and incredibly cinematic, and that the filmmaking is a character. The filmmaking is so in the foreground of a comedy show, which I think is, that's what I'm the most proud of. And I think Reese and Alex just outdid themselves. Everything you see when you guys are watching, when we would watch the cuts, it was a great feeling because it was way better and funnier than we would ever expect. It was always me and Fred and Seth calling each other going, did you just watch Blue Jean Committee? It looks amazing. It's so much funnier than anything we thought we were doing. And it just looks beautiful, and that's those two guys,
Well, the whole team deserves to be proud of this.
Are they clapping for you guys?
Yeah, they're clapping for all of you. And
like an old grandmother, are they clapping?
we're so we're so pleased to put this on the big screen. I hope I have more opportunities to show these episodes on the big screen. Reese and Alex, I think you guys have brought something special for the audience.
On your way out, you can all enjoy the music of the Blue Jean Committee.
What? Is this a vinyl?
Yeah, this is real. Look at this. This is a real thing.
I don't have one of those.
It's funny because Cameron Crowe in part 2, which you should all watch, he had a prop one of these, and it looked so awful compared to this.
This looks beautiful, Bill.
Yeah.
This is amazing how it turned out.
Yeah.
Reese, how do I get one of those?
If you were here,
in Toronto,
Real bullshit. That has my face on it.
can't get it on Skype.
Real fucking bullshit, guys. I don't know who I'm looking at. By the way, I'm in jail. I don't know if you guys know. I was arrested. That's why I couldn't be there. I'm sorry.
Bill, I want to thank you for taking time from your jail sentence to join us. I know you've had a monster year this year, and we're really grateful for you taking the time to join us via Skype at the Toronto International Film Festival. Thank you to Alex Bono. Thank you to Reese Thomas. Thanks everyone for joining us at the TIFF Doc Conference. Go on out, enjoy reception, get the Blue Jean Committee. Bill Hader, everybody.
bye, Bill.
Thanks a lot, guys.